It is such a pleasure to be here at the David M. Kennedy Center. I'm Dr. Paula Schipper from Thunderbird, the Garvin School of International Management in Phoenix, Arizona. Used to be, before it was the Garvin School, it was the Thunderbird, the International Center. But we're still Thunderbird. We've just had a slight change. When you have an alumnus that gives $60 million, then you're allowed to change the name. I just wanted to introduce my colleague with me today before I introduce Dr. Dash, and Mr. Jay Bryant is in the back, and he is Director of Recruitment and Admissions at Thunderbird, and he also is a Thunderbird alumnus. So Jay, thank you for coming. You know, I'm not a grad, thanks Jay, I'm not a grad of BYU, but my husband is. And my sister-in-law is Patricia Kennedy, and her dad is David M. Kennedy. So there's a lot of connection in my family with BYU and with the David M. Kennedy Center. And I appreciate the fact that we always have wonderful students from the BYU campuses that actually eventually end up coming to Thunderbird. And I do know that Dr. Dash had a favorite TA that was a graduate of BYU not too long ago. So again, it's our pleasure, and we hope that you enjoy this lecture and also learn something. Let me tell you a little bit about my colleague and my friend, Kishore Dash. Kishore speaks 4 different dialects of the Indian language, and he's obviously has published in many books and chapters. He is an award-winning faculty member at Thunderbird. He's been there almost 8 years. He is director of Thunderbird's Big Emerging Markets in Asia. He is professor of global business. He has received his undergraduate degree from the University of New Delhi and his master's from Georgetown. We'll forgive him that he didn't get his master's at Thunderbird, but Georgetown is still an excellent institution. And then he received his PhD from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He certainly is well known for many things, but particularly with his work with the World Bank and Asian affairs. So Thunderbird is thrilled to be able to come here and present to you, to have this relationship and partnership with the David M. Kennedy Center, personally and professionally, and it is our honor to be here. We hope that you enjoy it. My friend and my colleague, Dr. Kishore Dash.
Thank you, Paula. Good morning. Truly excited to be here in a beautiful campus. You know, coming from a temperature of 100 degrees to 58 right now, it's chilly, cold. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. Today, what I'm going to do is to give you some sense of India's business environment from a cultural, economic perspective, and then I will try to put McDonald's in that environment to discuss with you how McDonald's did things which led, in my judgment, to a remarkable success story. We all know about McDonald's. McDonald's is a symbol of globalization. It goes everywhere. It goes to Russia, it goes to China. No big deal. But India was the last frontier for McDonald's. And one of the reasons is McDonald's challenge to succeed in India has to do with India's societal and cultural dynamics. Indians don't eat beef. Indians don't eat pork. But there is some kind of misconception that most of the Indians are vegetarian. That's not true. In fact, almost 80% of Indians are non-vegetarian. But just 20% of Indians, and even less, eat beef or pork. So that remains the challenge. Indians eat fish and egg and lamb meat, goat meat, but no beef and, of course, pork. So in that context, McDonald's, renowned for its Big Mac as a flagship of McDonald's product, beef-based Big Mac, how could you do business in a setting where people don't eat beef? We'll take a look what McDonald's did. But before we do that, let me start with this presentation that I have prepared for you. This is prepared by Indian Tourism in cooperation with the British Airways and the Confederation of Indian Industry. It's a business association which was in charge of pitching for India in the recently concluded Davos conference in Switzerland, where India made a lot of splash. India pitched as an attractive destination for foreign direct investment. This slogan, Incredible India, but here is my take. And this is the sensitivity I would definitely like to have anytime I take a look at India's business environment. Anything you can say about India, the opposite is also true. This is the agenda I have for you. We'll talk about some basic facts. I'll give you a little sense of market profile, how India's culture is changing, and what McDonald's did in order to succeed in that particular environment. And as some of you probably know, I have written a case study on McDonald's in India. We use that at Thunderbird. It's based on my field research. I interviewed 18 McDonald's managers, including their CEOs, and I had the fortune of eating in 18 McDonald's. They are great food. So those of you who are interested to take a look at the case, you probably can take a look. Indian map, and this is the northern part of India, western part of India, southern part of India, eastern part of India. Some of the basic facts, as you can take a look, one of the things I always try to bring to the attention here is the population. By 2050, the population is going to surpass China. China will no longer be considered as the most populated country in the entire world. It's going to surpass. And then one of the things we probably can keep in mind, $1 is equivalent to 44 Indian rupees. Indian rupees. And what does that tell us? That tells us the power of US dollar. That simply tells us India is pretty cheap. So if you have US dollar, access to US dollar, India is a very inexpensive place for you to travel to do business. Some of the largest cities, Mumbai, New Delhi, Kolkata. India is a home to all major religions. Hinduism is the majority. 80% of Indians, they practice Hinduism. 14% Muslims. And by the way, that's translated into 150 million Muslims who live in India. This is the second largest Muslim populated country in the entire world, next to Indonesia. And Christians 2%, Sikhs 2%, Buddhists 1%, and Jains 1%. And the reason I'm bringing this to your attention here is all these religions have national holidays. Hindus have at least 12 national holidays. And when I say national holidays, all over India, everything is closed. National holidays in addition to their state holidays, regional holidays. Muslims have about 3 national holidays. Christians, December 25 is a national holiday. Buddhist, the Buddha Purnima, when Buddha was born, that is a national holiday. The Jainist birth is a national holiday. So if you are stressed out, a lot of work, not getting any vacation, here is a country. It's a national holidays in addition to your state holidays. India is a diverse country. 16 major languages recognized by Indian Constitution. It's official languages. And 1,000 dialects. What that simply means, people from South India cannot understand the language spoken in North India or East India or West India. Same is the case with eastern part of India, southern part of India, western part of India, and northern part of India. So language is a very emotional and important issue in India. India became independent in 1947, August 15, 1947. But Indian territories, the state territories, the 29 states, those state territories were drawn not on the basis of territorial lines. The territorial lines are based on language issue. If you speak Tamil, you belong to Tamil Nadu, that's a state. If you speak Oriya, you belong to Orissa, that's my state. If you speak Bengali, you belong to West Bengal. So on the basis of language, these territorial lines were drawn in India in 1956, 1 decade after India became independent. You cannot communicate with people from other parts of India if you are not speaking English. And of course, Indians speak English with I. English with E is a British colonialism. That's a foreign language. And the point I'm trying to drive home here is this English with I simply means there is an enormous amount of regional accent in India. South Indians speak with an accent probably the North Indians will not be able to understand. But English becomes a language of necessity. English becomes a language of survival. English becomes a language for you to go up in the ladder inside India. Of course, Indians have a dream to come out of India. You got to know English. But even inside India, if you want to go up in the ladder, you got to speak English. One of the things I always say, if you're going to India, 3 things we got to be sensitive to. One is, a lot of Indians watch movies, the so-called Bollywood movies. Bollywood is entertainment, is escapism from reality. And of course, if you want to succeed in India, knowing about cricket is a very smart thing to do. Cricket is a passion in India. It's a passion. And the final thing in India is English. It's a necessity. 3 things which keeping India in a very interesting way united is the cricket, is the Bollywood movies, the English language. And on the basis of regions, people are different. And the three things which are uniting India are probably those three things. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is it's always, if you don't want to talk about Bollywood movies, that's fine. But definitely, if Indians start speaking to you about cricket, you are being trusted. And you are not supposed to speak any other language than English. There's a misconception that if you are going to India, you got to learn Hindi, you got to learn their language. They don't expect that from you. They don't expect that from you. They expect that you are speaking English. With this, let me move over to a market profile. Little things that India is making news. And here are a couple of things I wanted to share with you. The macroeconomic statistics here. As you can see, it's an 8% GDP. Any country which is experiencing 8% GDP is pretty good. It's a rapidly growing economy. 300,000 engineers every year India is producing, some from very top-notch universities, some from other regional universities, but you have 300,000 engineers in India every year. English is widely spoken. Corruption is rampant. India is one of the highly corrupt countries. And those of you who are already familiar with the Transparency International is a Berlin-based NGO which publishes annually the list of corrupt countries, and the most corrupt country in the entire world is Nigeria. Bangladesh just lost that position. They're not very happy about it. But definitely, it's a very, very useful insight. Those of you who want to do business or go to different parts of the world. Transparency International, the Berlin-based NGO, provides you a good profile of the countries where corruption is high or low. And India is about 80. China is 56, the ranking. China is 56. Just for the reference point, United States is 19. But those of you who are looking for very, absolutely corruption-free country, Scandinavian countries are pretty good. They are on the top, corruption-free. So India is obviously very high on corruption. Large number of people in poverty. 25% of Indian population are poor. And that is also one of the sensitivities I want you to keep in mind anytime we talk about India. GDP growth rate from 1991 to 2004, 6.2% per year. GDP composition is an interesting statistics. I would like to take a look. And here is what I'm trying to bring to attention. GDP composition is agriculture 22%. Agriculture still contributes 22% to the annual GDP of India. And then you have agriculture employs about 60% of Indian population. So it's useful to keep in perspective that India is making all kinds of news, but agriculture is a very important aspect of India's economy. Then these are some of the, depending on your perspective, depending on the sources of your information, if you're getting it from Wall Street Journal, if you're getting it from Financial Times, if you're getting it from the Business Week, India has different numbers of middle class, the middle class profile. And generally there is a consensus that India has about 300 million middle class, almost same as China, and definitely more than United States. But this is the part of the things I would like to talk to you. In reality, how many people in India are truly middle class? But 300 million is a number generally talked about. And then mobile phone subscription is just going up and up and up. 58 million in 2005. It is going to be almost 100 million in 2007. 4 million PCs sold per year. 30 million internet. 9.4 million automobiles. 45.3 million motorbikes, motorcycles. Second largest market for the motorcycles. And in fact, those of us who are familiar with India's road and India's crowd, motorcycle has a real great prospects than car. On Indian road, you simply cannot drive a car. You cannot drive a car. I mean, the motorcycles and motorbikes can give you more mobility and more direction than those automobiles. Just last January, I was in India and I tried to drive a car. I did succeed, but when I came back, I was determined to give you this advice. While in India, don't ever drive a car. Of course, when Indians come to the United States, they really don't like to drive a car in the United States because driving on U.S. roads are not challenging enough. But keep that in perspective. Keep that in perspective. This is one of the issues why motorcycles, two-wheelers, they have a better chance on the Indian roads than the motorcycle. I mean the cars, for example. India is making a lot of noise on pharmaceutical industry and the biotechnology industry. The next frontier of revolution in India is biotechnology. And this is obviously true, partly because India is producing a lot of engineering students, a lot of scientists, and a lot of real science graduates to deal with these pharmaceutical challenges. But one of the things I wanted to share with you, let's be realistic, let's be sensitive about what is the real number of India's middle class. More than $10,000 if you make annually, you are rich. You belong to that rich category. That simply means you can buy anything from the market you would like to. And if you make more than 5,500, more than 3,000, you can be described as upper middle class, and then less than 3,000 will put you under the category of the middle class. But the important point here is take a look at the number of households with that kind of income. Each household has an average of 5.5 members. And if you do your math, you have a sense that how many people are actually middle class. But the important thing here is number of households with that kind of income. That simply tells you that India has not yet reached that level of income, that level of purchasing power where Indian middle class can afford to buy a car. So for the automobile industry, automobile product, India is still not yet a market. I'm not saying it will never be a market. It will be a market. But at this point, it's not. Then this is a demographic trend I wanted to share with you. And one of the things I want to point out here, this is what you see here. This is 15 to 64. This is the productive workforce. And if you take a look here, what this particular graph tells us is India will continue to supply enormous amount of labor to the market. The conclusion is India will remain cost competitive, globally speaking, labor cost competitive. Its cost of labor will continue to be inexpensive and cheaper in comparison with other countries. So that's one of the issues that I wanted to bring to your attention. And of course, if you are in high-tech industries or biotechnology, you are a scientist, you are an engineer, your labor cost is high. But on an average, Indian labor cost is going to be pretty competitive in comparison with China, in comparison with other countries. And that's one of the attractions of India for foreign direct investment. And I thought this is one of the things which probably will be interesting for us. India is a young country, a median age 25 years, 33 in China, 35 US, 38 European Union, and 43 in Japan. On this basis of demography, the Goldman Sachs Group has predicted, and again it's a very interesting report, the report called the BRIC economy. BRIC, B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, C for China. So the BRIC economy, prospects of BRIC economy by 2015 by Goldman Sachs. And in that particular report, they have predicted that India is going to surpass China, Russia, and Brazil. And here is on the basis of this demographic and labor competitiveness. A couple of things I wanted to share with you about India's culture and values, cultural values. Hinduism is a very old religious tradition. And in Hinduism, here there are more than 300 million gods and goddesses. So there is no dearth of gods and goddesses. Typically, you can pray any god you are comfortable with. Now, the reason sometimes we say 300 million gods and goddesses, what's going on here? These 300 million gods and goddesses, one of the issues I would like to bring to your attention is Hinduism believes in the congruency of nature. And what I mean by congruency of nature, simply this. Any object in the nature, any natural object that benefits human being ought to be revered, respected, worshipped. If water benefits human being, there is a water god. If fire benefits human being, there is a fire god. If wind benefits human being, there is a wind god. If computer benefits human being, there is a computer god. If a monkey benefits human being, there is a monkey god. If a snake benefits human being, there is a snake god. So any object of the nature that benefits human being ought to be worshipped. So there is moon god, sun god, water god, fire god, you name it. These 300 million gods and goddesses also tell us one more thing. That is tolerance of difference. Indians are tolerant of all different sects and religions. And that is one of the reasons of Indian tradition and Indian history. When Islam came, well, there was little conflict. Conflict still goes on. But tolerated coexistence is entirely possible. Likewise, Christianity. Likewise, Jainism. So any religion, any religious belief that can coexist in India. And these 300 million gods and goddesses also tell us that there is a societal foundation for the pluralistic structure of Indian society. India will never become an authoritarian state. It doesn't have that societal basis. It doesn't have that societal foundation. It will continue to remain pluralistic. So Indian democracy, despite being so hugely poor, it's going to be there. There is no doubt in my mind that India ever can succeed with authoritarian regime experiment. There is simply no societal support for authoritarianism. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring to your attention. And about Hindu DNA, this is something, it runs through the Hindu psyche, the karma, dharma, and moksha dynamics. Karma, again, simply translated is whatever you do every day, your action, your deeds. Dharma is your duty to our family, toward the society, toward your country, toward your people. So basically what it says is, if your karma, meaning good karma, is consistent with a good dharma, then you are going to be rewarded in your life. The moksha or the salvation is a reward that you get. You don't get it in this life, but you definitely get it in the next life. Believes in after birth or after death life cycle. Then if you're not doing your karma well, and if you're not keeping up your duty and responsibility toward your family, then you are going to be punished. You get that maya or the illusion. So if you're rewarded, you go to heaven, paradise. If you are punished, you go to hell. And then obviously, in your next life, you take birth as a lowly creatures. Take birth as a low caste person. And that is the part of Indian karma, dharma, moksha dynamics that I wanted to share with you. But basically what you see here is, let me bring this up. Indian, or this is what I call Hindu social fabric, is a very stage-oriented society. It's a very stage-oriented life. So the stage 1, 5 to 16 years, you are supposed to be a student. What is your good karma? What is your good dharma? Your good karma is total devotion to learning, and dharma is acquisition of knowledge. After 16 years of age, you become a householder. A Hindu becomes a householder. And what is the good karma for this householder, good dharma for this householder? Good karma is work hard, total dedication to your work. And then dharma is look after your family, look after your children, look after your parents. The point I'm trying to make here is this. Oftentimes we are told that India or in Hinduism, there is no place for making money. Not true. But there's a stage for making money. And that stage is the productive part of your life, 16 years to about 50 years of age. You're supposed to make money. You make money, but don't indulge yourself. Don't try to do all those kinds of things which are not acceptable. But definitely making money is a part of your responsibility. Now, the third stage, after 50 years of age, you assume that role of a hermit, and there you are trying to share your experience of success or failure with your fellow beings. And then the final stage is where you are supposed to renounce everything, and you are doing work for the next generation to come. You are looking after the future, looking after this future. And this stage-oriented structure of Indian society has various implications for business, doing business in India. And 3 things I will talk to you at this point now. A caste hierarchy, it supports the caste structure in India. It supports corruption. And there's a little attitudinal dynamics here I would like to share with you. Now, the caste hierarchy and Indian society is divided into this caste structure, and the Brahmins are at the highest level, then Kshatriyas, then Vaishyas, then Sudras, then the untouchables. There are, corruption. In India, one of the things I always say, you ask any Indian, they will tell you, corruption is bad. Nobody will support corruption. But there is a tolerance for corruption. And that tolerance is coming from Hinduism. You tolerate it. Corruption is good or bad, that's a judgmental issue. Forget about that. But there's a tolerance for corruption. And one of the issues you will see in India that, a politician, for example, or a bureaucrat, for example, who is highly corrupt, people will say he's a corrupt bureaucrat, he's a corrupt individual. But if he brings electricity to the village, if he provides water to the village, people will say, well, he's corrupt, but he does something. And that is the tolerance dynamics that I want to bring to your attention here. And then, of course, the Brahmanical support, the Brahmins, the priests who worship the god, they always demand that you give them something to appease God, and that has been traditionally accepted as a part of, providing bribery or bribing to your superiors. And then finally, attitude toward work. Indian attitude can be a mix of both soft-oriented and a technocratic-oriented. By soft-oriented, I simply means is, Indians love to make money. Everywhere else, these days, India love to make money. But Indians will not be sufficiently motivated if their family is challenged in a workplace. So there has to be support for family structure, family obligations. Anytime you go to India, if someone is absent in the office or the workplace, you know what? My wife is sick. My son was sick. I went to look after my father. So that is the point. If the workplace doesn't support the familial obligations, that workplace is not sufficiently motivating for Indians. Things are changing in India, and one of the things is, like China, every Indian, or at least young Indian, they love to make money. Get rich is no longer the mantra of Deng Xiaoping's China. Get rich also is a mantra in India. Every young man wants to be rich by any means. And that attitude is changing. What I put it down here is from a Sanskritization culture to a Bunyanization or a commercial culture. From a culture of scholarship, from a culture of sacrifice, to a culture of acquisition, to a culture of commerce. And that is rapidly coming to India. And cultural dualism is an issue I would like to be sensitive to. My take here is 30% Indians are urban, educated, sophisticated. They live in cities and towns. And in that 30% India, you do not have a caste structure. Caste structure is simply broken down. But that 70% India are still traditional. The 70% India still live in the rural part of the country. And what it tells us is that if your industry is related to food and beverage and all those kinds of industry or agricultural industry, you got to be sensitive to this caste structure. If your industry is related to information technology and those kind of high-tech industries, you probably won't have to worry about the caste structure. But that cultural dualism is an important aspect of understanding the contemporary India. And in this cultural dualism or 30% urbanization, you see all kinds of things are happening. Husband and wife doing jobs. They are having 2 houses. They are having 2 cars. But obviously, what you see here is this. In the context of India, I always I learned these 2 things. One of the things is the DINK phenomenon. We all know about DINK, double income, no kids. India still remains a kid-centric universe. It's a kid-centric culture. But in the 30% India, double income, no kids is acceptable. And then, just last time when I went to India, I came across it's a very interesting word called MIK phenomenon. What is MIK? Men in kitchen. That is a cultural statement here, that men are cooking. Men are cooking. And by the way, if you're interested to know which generation I belong to, I'm one of those MIKs. The point here is this is the cultural attitude change. Cultural attitude change that's going on in India. And in this context, what did McDonald's do? What did McDonald's do? And I know that I have little time here, but let me just bring you the synopsis of this case study that I've done. And one of the things we always do, that as a company, we got to understand our strength, internal strength. And what is the company's internal strength? To what extent that's congruent with the country's business environment or business challenges. And this congruency dynamics is important for us, at least to understand how to succeed in a country's environment. So what McDonald did, McDonald initially started developing that strategy, McDonald's successful strategy, in the context of these issue-specific sensitivity. And I want to bring those issue-specific or contextual issues that McDonald tried to tackle in India. And I use a framework called CAGE. K, C for culture, A for administrative political issues, G for geographic issues, and E for economic issues. So what are those contextual issues? Cultural issues, political issues, economic issues, and geographic issues. Those are the issues McDonald tried to understand in order to develop new strategies to succeed in the Indian context. What it did in the cultural context, some of the issues is a religion. It's pretty big. Vegetarian versus non-vegetarian food preference in India. What do? You are McDonald's after all. And McDonald introduced what is often described as the Maharaja Mac. Big Mac is gone. In its place, Maharaja Mac stepped in. Maharaja Mac is a lamb, goat, meat-based burger. a flagship product like Big Mac is not being marketed in that country. And I want you to think about it. McDonald went to such an extent of changing its flagship product, its core product, doing business and becoming successful in an environment that requires radical strategies. And here is a classic example what McDonald did. McDonald's French fries are not beef tallow French fries, and then they have gone extra miles to make sure that these vegetarian products are purely vegetarian. So I visited 18 restaurants, and I have seen how those cooking, they're entirely different. Utensils are different, cooks are different, oil is different. The reasoning is if you're frying a burger, if the oil spills over to the vegetarian stuff, that's a no-no. You see here, the cooking, the kitchen is even absolutely remodeled. So that's what they did. And then 75% of McDonald's menu you will not recognize in India. It's all Indianized. Very fascinating names to attract the consumers. Bottom line here is consumers don't feel alienated while going to McDonald's. They get their aloo tikki, a favorite food in India. They get their chicken burger. They get their all kinds of tofu-oriented food, vegetarian food. So you don't feel alien, you don't feel foreign in a McDonald's restaurant. And then family-centric, child-centric, social dynamics. What do? McDonald's is not known as McDonald's in India. McDonald's is known as McDonald's Family Restaurant. It's a very big, it's a family restaurant. So obviously, it's trying to attract the family members. And it's very kid-friendly, very children-friendly. Nobody in McDonald's will tell the children, hey, stop, sit down, don't run. McDonald's in India have little counters. The children can go and they can buy their stuff. So it's a very children-friendly. So if you're parents, that stress is gone. Your children are welcome in a particular restaurant. And then one of the things I just saw, I definitely would like to mention that, Indians are ferociously scratching their Happy Meal voucher. When I visited those McDonald's restaurants, there is a Mahindra Jeep, there is a automobiles, there are vacation prizes for exotic destinations, And obviously what happens here is these Indians are, definitely in an Indian context, your fate is very important. Your luck is very important. You are successful, luck. You are not successful, you're fat. And here comes McDonald's. And bring that, those kind of things that if you're lucky, you win. If you're not lucky, you don't win. And one of the interesting aspects of these contextual issues, and the political issues, how do you deal with this neocolonialism, cultural imperialism? McDonald's has again gone to extra miles to earn that bureaucratic favor, bureaucratic support. We are not a US-based multinational company. We are not practicing colonialism, cultural imperialism, or globalization. We are a part of you. We are here to create jobs. That creating jobs is the most important attraction. And I interviewed the bureaucrats. One of the senior bureaucrats told me, what McDonald is doing, one McDonald is creating 150 jobs. I really don't care. If they go on creating 1 million McDonald's in India, 1 million multiplied by 150, hey, that's a good news for me. And this is a small-scale industry. McDonald is being perceived as a small-scale industry. And what McDonald did in India, it brought in the state-of-the-art technology and all those kinds of things. It's helping the dripping agricultural process. So it's actually helping the farmers. And there is an immense amount of social capital, good social capital, that McDonald's has generated because of this. And then I had discussed about some of the political risk issues. McDonald's is positioning itself as a global, as a local restaurant as opposed to the global restaurant, global chain, if you will. And then in India, green activism, environment is a big issue. But McDonald's is trying to deal with that issue by contributing lots of capital for pro-activist environment work or green activist. And then I will just switch to geography. Geography is McDonald did not open its restaurant in southern part of India, which is a vegetarian kind of space, cultural space. It opened its restaurants in north and western part of India where people eat meat. And then the final, one of the important issues I will bring to your attention is, in India, you are not going to succeed if you don't get the price right. Pricing is absolutely important in the context of Indian purchasing power. So the pricing that India has introduced, the McDonald's has introduced in the context of India is purchasing power pricing. McDonald's products are cheapest in McDonald's in India. And I've done my case studies, and I've given you a 20-country comparison where McDonald's is operating, and you'll see that they get the cheapest, inexpensive products in India. And that is a sensitivity to the purchasing power. So very, very, very briefly, let me conclude my my discussion here. Again, in the interest of time, one of the things I would like to bring to your attention here is product relevancy is critical in a country like India. Your product has to be relevant to the consumer's needs, to the consumer's purchasing power. And then that's one of the reasons why Nike, with its huge $55 price, Nike never reduced the price. It didn't succeed in India. And then if you are an Indian, you have a choice. You pay $55 to purchase a pair of Nike shoes, that to white Nike shoes, 2 days after it will get dirty, or you can buy a cow. Pricing is absolutely important. And that's what it did. That's what it did. And then adequate supply chain arrangement, if you're a multinational corporation, that's very important. You have to ensure that adequate supply chain arrangement is there. One of the things McDonald is doing very well is practice good corporate citizenship. Giving back to the community is good. Giving to the community will reverse your image as a global exploitative cultural institution. In India, McDonald's is considered as a giving back to the community in the context of introducing polio vaccines, providing scholarship to the girls' educations, and doing all kinds of things where Indian community thinks McDonald's is a part of us. It's a very interesting, fascinating story that McDonald did succeed in the context of India. And those of you who would like to take a look at the case study, these are the detailed issues I have described in my case study. And if a multinational company is serious about its strategy, India is no longer the frontier. I'll stop here, and thank you very much.